guys. I am post-call, so please forgive the post-callness of this. But I just wanted to run you guys through. I'm about to throw these cakes in the oven, bake them, do the torting so that I can move on to filling with you guys. And so before I throw this in, most of us are comfortable baking a cake, but I just wanted to go over some basics. The recipe that I would recommend for most people to start with. If you have a favorite recipe, by all means use that. Most recipes work. You don't need a particular crumb for cakes unless you want to carve them. Because I'm going to teach you how to support your cake so that the cake itself never actually has to support the weight of the tiers. So you could conceivably do this with angel food cake and be fine as long as you're not carving the cake. However, this recipe for cakes is a very easy, ridiculously versatile, very easy to customize to whatever you want. And it's a very tried and true recipe. It's the WASC, White Almond Sour Cream Cake, WASC. Natalie has talked about it before. She has it posted in the files, a version of it. The original version came from a user on a cake forum that's been around for a long time, but the original version was posted 10 years ago by a user named Cake Lady. K's, 2 K's and an I, which I stupidly said Kakalati for like 2 months before realizing it was Cake Lady. But anyhow, Cake Lady posted it originally, and all it is, and I'll put it in the actual blog thing, but all it is her original version is one box of cake mix, just white cake mix. We'll flavor it later, and I'll show you guys how to flavor it, but just regular white cake mix. 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sugar. So those are your three dry ingredients. One box, 1 cup, 1 cup. And then your wet ingredients: 3 whole eggs, 1 cup of water, and then whatever flavoring you're going to use, you'd use a teaspoon of that. And that can be Princess Cake emulsion, it can be vanilla, it can be almond, it can be whatever you want to use. And 1 cup of sour cream. You can substitute the sour cream for yogurt. You can substitute any flavors you want. You can use coffee instead of water, or orange juice instead of water, or lemonade. The variations that you can do on that recipe are infinite, and it's amazing how versatile that recipe is. But the basics: your 3 dry ingredients, 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 box, and your wet ingredients: 1 cup of sour cream, 1 cup of water, 3 eggs, and then your flavoring. So when you do that, when you mix just that, and like I said, there's many variations that have come after that. She did, I think she recommended Duncan Hines. I really don't have a preference. Duncan Hines, Betty Crocker, whatever you have works fine. They have modified it since then to give what is basically the same structural quality to the cake, but modifying it for amount of cake mix. I think Natalie's recipe modifies it for the amount of cake mix, because both Betty Crocker and Duncan Hines have actually modified the amount of cake mix, the actual volume of cake mix in a cake mix box since Cake Lady first put out her recipe. And then there's some recipes, such as the one that's posted, that use egg whites instead of whole eggs, or that use a little bit more flour, a little bit more cake mix. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. I use this one when I want to use the WASC. It's foolproof, guys. It works every time. It's beautiful. One of those, these are 2 8-inch rounds, which will make 1 tier of cake, okay? I use 3-inch pans. So if you have a 2-inch pan, that's perfectly okay too. That's what a 2-inch looks like next to a 3-inch pan. You can use either one of them. Either one of them is fine. I usually use the 3-inch just because I don't usually just go by 1 WASC and we're done. I make multi-tiered cakes, and then I split up my batters, and then I flavor them differently, and so I end up with odd volumes of batter. And I like the taller cake pans because they're really easy to tort to exactly the size I want. But it's totally up to you. 2 inches is more than fine. The things I want to show you, I had mentioned in the blog that one of your materials would be a flour nail, and this is what a flour nail looks like. And this particular brand that I recommend, Derateco, has a dull point here. Some of the Wilton ones have a pointy point there, and it's just, it doesn't matter what you use. They're all the same, except that it's nice to not get, you know, your fingers jabbed into one of those if they're pointy. What I do with this, I use Wilton Cake Release. It's one of the few Wilton products that I absolutely adore. Guys, if you have discovered that using some awesome doctored crazy glue made from the tears of, you know, rainbow fairies, and that works for you, use that by all means. This works for me every time. Every, you know, homemade goop and flour and butter and oil and shortening process that I've used has come up short for me with respect to this. So the other nice thing about this cake release in particular, is that it's available in a lot of grocery stores. You don't have to go to your Hobby Lobby or Joann or Michael's or whatever to find it. It's available at most grocery stores. So I personally, if I am getting to a point where I'm about to bake for a big party and I don't have cake release, Wilton Cake Release, I will stop everything and go to the store. Not true. I will stop everything and send my husband to the store to get me cake. Here, will you turn the camera around so they can see you, please, baby? Thank you. That's Eric. That's my husband. He's the maker of happenings in our house, and the driver of Post Call Wives. Just the awesome guy. If you know me from any of the other groups, he's the one who makes it all happen. So anyhow, but I will stop everything until I have Wilton Cake Release, because it just works so very well for me. So what I'll do is I'll take a flour nail. Anytime that you use, I don't use it for 8-inch pans, but anytime that I have a 10-inch pan or anything bigger, again, this is a 10-inch pan that's 3 inches tall. Anytime that I have one of those, I will just use some cake release and smear it all over my flour nail. Put the flour nail just like that into the middle of the pan. Pour my batter into it, and I mean, the batter may push the flour nail a little bit one way or the other. It doesn't matter, just roughly in the center. Pour it on, and that's how you bake it. And then once you bake it, when you're getting ready to turn the cake, you turn your cake, and your cake, this is only, you know, that's the other nice thing about the Ateco ones versus the Wilton ones. The Wilton ones are a little bit longer. The Ateco ones are short enough that they will probably be covered by your baked cake. So you turn it over, you unmold it, however you're gonna unmold it, and when you take this off, the flour nail is sitting right on top of your baked cake. And so you just grab your little flour nail and you flip it on out. But the nice thing about this is that it conducts heat really nicely, so you never end up with baked sides and mushy middle or raw middle that you can't quite torte, because that's a nightmare. Especially if you're making chocolate cakes. Chocolate cakes tend to bake a little bit more slowly and they're hard. One more thing I'm going to show you here about the cake release. Other options, there's lecithin that a lot of professional cakers use, and it works just as well as cake release does for me, except it leaves this really difficult to clean residue, and you may be able to see some of the yellow here. It's just discoloration from the lecithin, and it's really, really hard to remove. So it's up to you. It doesn't change your cake. It doesn't change the flavor of your cake. It doesn't change the texture of your cake. It doesn't corrode your cake pans, but it does make a difference as far as the discoloration, as far as the residue that's just so hard to get off. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm about to pop these into the oven. Like I said, just filled them. Usually we say 2/3 full, but when we say 2/3 full, it's because we're talking about 2-inch pans. You could fill this 2/3 full, and I often do when I want to make a slightly taller tier, just slightly taller. But this is just a normal WOSC recipe that works beautifully. Don't worry about the 2/3 full if you're doing it with a 3-inch pan, and you can see if it were with a 2-inch pan, you'd be right about 2/3 full. So the main thing that I want to show you here, as I'm about to take my cakes in there, one thing that I do, okay, so your enemy here always is air. You don't want extra air in there to rise the cake further and to lose cake when you go to torte. You want as much of your cake to rise as evenly as you possibly can, so you can save as much of it and have a nice tall tier. So I always do this right before I go into the oven. Now I'm yelling. Right before I go into the oven. And and try to just burst some of those bubbles that are there, okay? And just smack it around a little. And you'll see, well, you can't see. I can see. You can see some of the little bubbles just bursting as you do it. So some of those little air bubbles are bursting. So now I'm going to bring this over to the oven. And with my oven, sorry, post-close sweatshirt, ignore. With my oven here, I set it, you always want to set it at the lowest possible setting when you're making a cake. For it to, like the first 20 minutes, you're going to set it at the lowest possible temperature within the caking temperatures so that it rises very slowly. And then once it's risen, then you're going to go up on your temperature. So for example, here, I'm going to start it out at 300 degrees. And I know that's super low, and no cake recipe will ever tell you to do 300 degrees. But you start at 300 degrees, you go for 20 minutes, and then after 20 minutes, you can go up to 325. If you read a recipe for caking, it'll frequently tell you, what time is it? 10%. It'll frequently tell you to do, are we loud because of the dishwasher? Let's move over. It'll frequently tell you to start at 350 or at 325. For cupcakes, I do exactly the opposite. For a cupcake, you want a nice rounded top. So for a cupcake, you're going to start high, get the batter to rise, and then once it's risen, then you're going to turn it down so that everything is evenly baked. But for cakes, you don't want it to dough. You want it to be nice and flat as it goes up. So you start at 300 for 20 minutes, and then you turn it up afterward. And I'll see you guys when the cake's done.